Nkechi had never considered herself a romantic, despite being a village beauty. She'd always been far more focused on her work as a seamstress, pouring her passion into every gown she crafted, from the lace trim to the delicate stitching. But even the busiest seamstress couldn't escape the pressures of her family and the village, both eager to see her married. Every day, a new suitor would visit her shop, offering gifts, compliments, and promises of a life together. Yet none of them held her heart. None of them made her feel what she longed for, true love. Then came Chijioke. As she made her way home from a long day of sewing and fitting, the sky darkened ominously, and a torrential downpour began. Caught in the middle of the road, with no shelter in sight, Nkechi dashed into the dense forest, hoping to find cover. The village was small, and the forest surrounding it was infamous for its eerie stillness. They said the spirits of the dead wandered those woods, restless and searching for something they had lost. But tonight, the forest seemed calm. She stumbled along the muddy trail, her shoes slipping as the rain poured harder. The path twisted unexpectedly, leading her deeper into the woods until, to her surprise, she came across a clearing. In the center of that clearing stood a man. He was tall, with a striking presence that seemed to command the space around him. His features were sharp, his skin a deep shade of ebony that gleamed in the fading light, and his eyes that seemed to reflect the moon itself, locked onto hers as if he had been waiting for her. He wore white, from head to toe. The fabric of his clothes was simple but rich, as though it had been spun from the finest silk. Even in the rain, he remained impeccably dry, his clothes untouched by the wetness that clung to her own. "Are you lost?" he asked, his voice smooth and velvety, like the sound of distant drums in the night. Nkechi, flustered, quickly nodded. "Yes, I was just looking for shelter." The rain, it came so suddenly. "Come," the man said, extending a hand toward her, his expression warm. "I know a place where you can wait for the storm to pass." There was something in his voice, something compelling, that made her trust him without question. She took his hand, and he led her to a small, sheltered hut hidden in the woods. The interior was modest but welcoming. There was a fire burning in a corner, and the smell of incense hung in the air. She sat by the fire, grateful for the warmth, as the rain continued its relentless downpour outside. "You must be Chijioke," she said, breaking the silence. She had heard of him, the quiet man who lived on the edge of the village, rarely seen but always spoken of. He smiled, the expression softening his sharp features. "Yes. And you are Nkechi, the village's most talented seamstress, I hear." Her cheeks flushed at the compliment. "You flatter me. I'm just someone who loves to make beautiful things." "Beauty is not in the things you make, but in how you make others feel," he replied. "And from what I've heard, you make others feel very beautiful indeed." As the storm raged outside, they talked and talked. They spoke of everything and nothing, of life, of dreams, of the mysteries of the world. The hours passed unnoticed, and before long the rain stopped, the clouds parted, and the moon shone brightly through the window. "I should return home," Nkechi said, standing up. "Thank you for the shelter, Chijioke." "No need to go," he interrupted softly. "It's still late, and I'd be happy to escort you back. I know the forest better than anyone." Nkechi hesitated. There was something about his presence, something magnetic that made it hard to refuse. She agreed, and together they left the hut. As they walked through the forest, the night air cool and crisp, they continued their conversation, and by the time they reached the village outskirts, Nkechi realized that, somehow, she had lost all sense of time. The walk had been peaceful, almost dreamlike. "Would you like to join me for a meal tomorrow?" Chijioke asked, his voice gentle but filled with an undercurrent of hope. Nechi's heart skipped. There was something in his eyes, a glint of sincerity that made her feel cherished, something she hadn't felt in years. "I'd like that," she said softly, unable to hide her smile. From that day on, Chijioke became a regular presence in her life. He would appear at her shop, helping her carry supplies or offering to keep her company while she worked. He brought gifts, fresh flowers, handcrafted jewelry, and other tokens of affection that seemed too perfect to be real. Yet, as the days passed, Nechi grew more and more drawn to him. She couldn't understand it. He was so kind, so considerate, and so deeply attuned to her needs. He seemed to know exactly what she wanted before she even said it. No one had ever treated her like this. Their courtship was swift. Within a few weeks, they were inseparable. Chijioke would visit her every evening after she closed her shop, and they would talk into the night, laughing and sharing stories. He made her feel seen, important, like she was the only person in the world. The villagers had started to notice. Some whispered behind her back, but others were curious. How had someone like Chijioke, a man of such quiet grace and elegance, chosen Nkechi, a humble seamstress? As the days turned into weeks, Chijioke proposed. It was a simple proposal, made over a meal she had cooked for them both, but it was enough to sweep her off her feet. She said yes without hesitation. The wedding was planned, and soon the entire village was buzzing with excitement. On the day of the wedding, Nkechi wore a gown she had sewn herself. The fabric was rich, the lace intricate and delicate, and it shimmered in the sunlight like something magical. She had never felt so beautiful. Her heart swelled with love and anticipation, but there was one thing that bothered her, the absence of Chijioke's family. He had told her that they were overseas, unable to attend due to business, but something about the explanation felt incomplete. Yet, as she walked down the aisle, all doubts vanished. Chijioke waited at the altar, his eyes filled with love and pride as she approached. His smile was radiant, and for a moment she could have sworn the air around him shimmered. It was as if the very earth was rejoicing in their union. The ceremony was perfect, and soon they were married. Chijioke's family remained absent, but the village embraced him as one of their own. His presence felt like a gift, like a promise of prosperity and joy. Their life together began in a large house on the outskirts of the village. It was a beautiful home, spacious and elegantly furnished. The rooms were filled with fine art and ornate furniture, as if he had been planning this life for a long time. Yet, despite the outward beauty, something about the house made her uneasy. The silence seemed to echo through the halls, and the air felt strangely still, as though the house were holding its breath. At first she chalked it up to nerves. But as the days passed, she began to notice little things that unsettled her. Chijioke, though loving, seemed distant at times. He would disappear for long stretches of time, returning after midnight with no explanation. His skin, usually warm and comforting to the touch, would grow cold at night, as though he were made of something other than flesh. And then there were the whispers. Late at night, when she lay awake in their bed, she could hear soft murmurs coming from the walls. Sometimes the whispers seemed to be speaking her name. One evening, as she sat by the fire in the living room, she saw Chijioke's reflection in the window, but when she turned, he was nowhere to be seen. She thought nothing of it at first, but as the days went by, the sightings became more frequent. His image would appear in mirrors or windows, but when she looked again, there would be nothing there. Nkechi was beginning to feel something was terribly wrong, but her love for Chijioke was still overwhelming. She couldn't fathom that anything could be wrong with him. Yet, deep inside, a growing dread gnawed at her. And then came the night the truth would finally be revealed.